It's the Saturday morning show. Max Armstrong with you here on WGN Radio Chicago. You know, a year ago at this time, we had much more warmer weather. We had drier weather. We had tractors moving in the field. Well, that hasn't been the case, of course, in 2013, and we're looking at the arrival of April wondering, isn't it about time to start moving into the fields to prepare for the planting of the 2013 crop? I talked with Randy Pauli about that yesterday. Randy is an agronomist with Elburn Co-op, just to the west of Chicago. I asked him about the field work progress.
Well, I'd say we haven't really got started, so I guess behind when you look at that calendar, but yet we were normally early last year, so late compared to last year, but maybe on a normal year, just about maybe where we should be or getting started anyway.
You know, that's a very good point. We were so far ahead of usual last year. Many farmers were in getting planted early, and we need to remember that by the normal calendar, what, generally speaking, would be the first planting date for many of your growers? About the middle part of April?
Generally, in northern Illinois, about middle of April, toward the last week of April would be a normal starting time for planting.
Now, that's moved up a little bit over the years, hasn't it? Haven't many of your growers tried to advance that planting date some?
Yes, that's true, Max. I think a lot of it's probably due to the growth and the size of the farmers that need to get started maybe a little bit sooner, and also the newer technologies or seed improvements in seed that they can plant a little bit earlier and get away with that, so they are pushing the envelope to an earlier starting times and planting dates.
Is there some thought to advancing the planting date because you're going to try to miss the intense heat of summer with the pollination of the crop? In other words, you're trying to advance it a little bit so that you're not right in those critical days of pollination when it gets so hot in late July on into August.
Yes, that would be correct, especially when they seem to find that there's been a yield increase with fuller season genetics. So to be able to plant those, they want to move it earlier so that the pollination doesn't hit right in the heat stress of the midsummer time.
Here this time of year, obviously, moisture is one consideration, and soil temperature is another. Where do you like to see the soil temperature down there at about 4 inches to really get a good start on the corn growing season?
Well, generally for seed to germinate, they like to see a soil temperature at 50 degrees Fahrenheit at that depth there. So somewhere close to, or at least going to be a warm-up, so soil temperature should reach that 50-degree mark for germination.
I remember at one time they used to talk about, 56 degrees or something like that. Has that number skewed a little bit lower, actually, over the years?
Yeah, I think with the newer seed technologies, you have seed suppliers that will say that, you'll 50 to 52, they feel that you can get adequate and uniform seed germination if there is a warm-up shortly after the planting date. If you get a warm up to where it will get into those temperatures, there should be adequate temperatures for seed germination.
You know, last year I had visited with a couple of growers who just had difficulty getting that crop started, and they watched and watched and watched something. I remember guys talking about seed sitting there for 30, 31, 32 days before the crop got germinated. And I know they were scratching their heads and shaking their heads and thinking, we may have to replant this. And that wasn't the case after all. That wasn't terribly unusual from what I understand.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that's maybe done some of the advancements in these newer seed treatments, and also the care that's taken in seed corn production to give you better seed quality so that it will tolerate those type of conditions longer. Seed treatments to protect that seed along with from diseases and early season pests and insects. So I think there's been a lot of advancements toward that. So knowing that the larger growers or actually growers nowadays are going to push the envelope and go for earlier planting dates.
We're doing a lot to try to protect that technology in the seed there, I gather, then from what you're saying.
Yes, they know that growers are putting a larger investment in their seed these days, so to protect that, there's been many advancements in new seed treatment technologies and polymers and encapsulation such to protect that seed and to allow it to germinate when the soil temperature is the right thing. So it's a lot of advancements and I guess research being done to advance that.
The technology is not at all, I guess, unlike the technology that we talk about in the cab of the tractor or technology that we have at the farm office. This, too, is really yield-enhancing, production-increasing technology, isn't it, Randy?
Yes, that's a lot of efforts being put towards that to protect that investment and increase the yield potential of each seed.
I would imagine farmers have been spending these cooler days getting that planter ready to go. I've been in a couple of shops here of late, and the planter is all stretched out there. They were adding some additional products on that planter, trying to make sure that they could get some better fertilizer application or whatever they might have been doing there. But they're maintaining that unit, making sure it does the best job possible when they can get in the field.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think they realize that they get kind of one shot a year to get it planted correctly and do the best job that they can, and any improvements on the planter to make that happen. I think they're willing to make that investment and spend a little more time to get that planter in tip-top shape to make that happen.
You know, you make an excellent point there. One shot at this. I mean, with the expense that you have in the seed and with timeliness being so important, time being of the essence, I would imagine the growers get a little bit uptight about making sure that planter is doing the best job it possibly can, making sure that they're going to have as few skips that you might have, or doubles even along there. And our planters have made huge strides, haven't they? I mean, when you go back over the past 10 years.
Oh, yes. I think that the equipment manufacturers have as well been researching what new technology there to make the most accurate seed placement and spacing. And that's been a vast improvement in the last few years of what we had in the past, and just knowing the importance of that placement. So there's been great strides in improving the plantability of planters.
The other thing I think many of us still marvel at, although we're probably getting to the point where we almost take it for granted anymore, is how straight those rows are with the enhancement of GPS technology.
Yeah, that's correct. Even to we're riding with growers at the combine when they're trying to lay out a new land. They can't find the skips or the gaps because the GPS has done such a good job there. They have to go back almost counting rows to get over to make a new headland because they can't find that wide gap or the narrow planting gap to lay out a new land.
Quite a change from when we were a younger man, right, Randy?
You bet, you bet.
Well, it's great talking to you. We sure appreciate the opportunity, and we may check in with you from time to time.
You bet. I sure appreciate it, Max, and you have a great weekend.
You too, sir. Tell everybody there at Elburn Co-op we said hello and happy Easter.
Sure. Happy Easter, Max.
Randy Pauli, an agronomist with Elburn Co-op there. As we chatted yesterday, there's more coming up here on WGN Radio Chicago.